From 1998, the adventure continues with Star Trek Insurrection. I saw this film in theaters. At the time, I actually liked it quite a bit. I saw a lot of negative reviews after I saw the film that indicated that most people were critical of it because they felt like it played like a long episode of the television series. And at the time, I didn't mind that because that's exactly what I wanted to see, was the characters and situations that I came to know in the television series that I really enjoyed. And I felt like some of the previous installments tried so hard to make it a feature film that they lost the characters and the situations. So I actually liked that. Subsequently, I've had more problems with the film. But anyway, we watched it the other day. I wondered what you thought about it.
I liked this. I thought it was definitely more confusing for me. I don't know, I thought it was more confusing than a lot of the other Star Trek movies. I think that this one would not necessarily be one of my favorites.
The Next Generation films were definitely a mixed bag. While people like to talk about the original cast films, and they are very critical of half of the films because they feel like the odd-numbered films are poor in that series and the even-numbered ones are good. So you had 6, so it's sort of a 50-50 thing. I actually like all but one of those films. I don't care for Star Trek V that much, although there's pieces of it that I like, not too much. But I think the other films are decent, and we've talked about that because we've reviewed them all in here. The Next Generation films are all over the place.
Yeah, this one for me was kind of like how I first felt about the first original Star Trek film.
So Star Trek the Motion Picture?
Yes.
Okay.
I feel like I didn't quite get that as much, and I thought it was confusing for me.
Right.
And I think this was kind of like that for me.
And I don't think they were trying for that. I think they were actually trying for a straightforward story, but it does get a little convoluted. And as much as I like Jonathan Frakes as a director, I'm not going to necessarily blame him here. I think he is a very good director. There are some issues in this movie, and I noticed more this time around. There's the point where Captain Picard has decided, he puts his pips on the table. He gets rid of his captain's insignia, basically. And he's going to go down to the planet to help the Baku against orders. So he's down there kind of packing up his gear, and the rest of the primary crew come down to kind of join him. And if you noticed, the ones that are going to wind up going to the planet are all wearing civilian clothes. And Geordi and Riker are still wearing their uniforms. And those are the two that he assigns to stay on the ship. Now, either they made that decision ahead of time, Geordi and Riker decided that they were going to stay on the ship, but how did Picard know that? So he just happens to order the 2 crew members that are still in uniform to stay on the ship and tells everybody else to come with them.
Right.
They telegraphed it, basically. I think it was an error in continuity, and they telegraphed what was about to happen. And then later, when the Son'a are talking about how the Enterprise is going to the edge of the Briar Patch so they can signal Starfleet, somehow they already know Riker's in command. Now, I might have missed something, but I don't know how they could know Riker was in command of the ship. They might know Picard is on the planet, but how do they know that Riker isn't down on the planet too? They just assume Riker's in control of the ship. So a lot of little continuity errors that I picked up, and I pick up a few more each time I watch the film.
Yeah, I think that this one, I didn't really pay attention to that as much, but I did like this, but I did think that was kind of confusing. I think that was one of the things that were confusing. Another thing that there was a kid in this. I actually don't really know how I feel about that. I think that I didn't like him in some parts, but I think he was okay in other parts.
Yeah, when we reviewed My Spy, I talked about the 3 categories that kids fall into. There's the cute kid that can't act, but they try to capitalize on the cuteness. There's the kid that's the real deal, very natural, and just gets it. And then there was the other kid, the theater kid. This, to me, was the theater kid. That's knows how to do the process, knows how to act, knows that they know how to act. They know that they know how to act, and they come across a little bit pretentious. So he was very competent at his part, but he came across a little pretentious. And they were trying to work this childlike characteristic of Data in with the kid, right?
Yeah.
They were trying to show Data as childlike. And they needed the kid to do that because he scared the kid at first, but then the kid kind of takes him under his wing, tells him how to have fun. How did you feel about that part of the storyline? Did that work for you?
I don't really think so for me. I think that was one of the parts that I didn't really like because I feel like Data, I didn't really like that part with Data. I think that Data was a very good character in this, but I didn't really like that.
And see, that's where we might differ in opinion a little bit. I think they did not know what to do with Data in the films. They are all over the map with him. They give him the emotion chip in Generations, and he plays for all this ridiculous comedy with the emotion chip. Then they decide that they're going to give him the ability to turn the chip off in First Contact so that we don't have to deal with the emotion chip, right? And so he doesn't deal with it. And for the most part, he's good in that, although I don't like the love story with him and the Borg Queen that much. I don't know if you like it either. We get to this film, and here we are again with this uncomfortable, cringy humor. Now, some of it was good. When Picard and Data beam up, and they notice Worf has what he calls the gorch, which is the acne or the pimple. That's a nice comedic moment for Data, where he kind of whispers in Picard's ear, and then, you know, Picard says to Worf, it's hardly noticeable, and Data makes this great face, which is like, yeah, right, you know. That's good humor. There's other portions of the film where he gets humor like the settle up, lock and load. Just completely uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Just completely out of character, doesn't fit, doesn't work. They're going for comic relief, and it's just cringy to me. Did you like that? Did you find it funny?
I felt like Data was actually pretty funny in this, but there were definitely parts where I thought it just didn't work.
And it also seems like they try to find a way to work Brent Spiner's singing ability into a lot of these. You know, he sings in the next film, which you can't really see because there's too much in it that I would have to censor for you for Nemesis. But they find a way to let him sing there because he sings at the wedding of Riker and Troy. He sings in here at the beginning. They're always trying to find a way to work that in. It's just, it seems very efforted. It doesn't seem like it just flows naturally to me.
Yeah. Speaking of, like, graphic, I thought that those weird people, like, I did not like that.
Yeah, when they're face stretching the sonar to give them, to renew them or to give them some youth back, right?
Or like when they're replacing their teeth.
Yeah, they're replacing. Yeah, it was graphic without needing to be graphic, and their entire storyline was a bit strange. And then we never see that, you know, race again. We never saw him before. We never see him again in Star Trek. And while we've had episodes that way throughout the course of all the different series, I don't know. They were manufactured for the purpose of this film, and I agree. I didn't like watching the part with the teeth. You know, I have trouble when you have a loose tooth, so watching that was very difficult. You know, it's unfortunate because I feel like a great guest cast was wasted here. Donna Murphy is great in her part, and I like the little romance between her and Picard. I thought it was very heartfelt and nice. F. Murray Abraham plays one of the bad guys, Rotho, and he's a good bad guy, but again, I didn't care for... He's kind of chewing the scenery a little bit, and I didn't care for the race and what they're about necessarily. Anthony Zerbe plays the Admiral, who's kind of in between. He's Federation, but he's a little bit, you know, secretive and doing things that really aren't with the Prime Directive here. I've worked with him in real life. Nice guy, very talented. Wasted here. He has another very graphic death in this film. He has a death like that in one of the James Bond films, the second Timothy Dalton film. He has a very graphic, strange death. He has a similar one here. But I thought they were like wasted in a plot that didn't really necessarily work that well.
Yeah, I got confused mainly on this planet. And I think that was definitely part of the problem, and like how they all connect it really, like how there's like these drones and then they get sent
they beam
up.
them up.
Yeah,
you know, the whole premise of this is that these people came and lived on this planet and they've settled there, and the Federation is going to move them so that they can utilize this special radiation that exists to help people gain more youth. And the whole premise is a little bit rocky, and if you miss what's going on, it's very confusing for the rest of it. What I did like, and I wondered if you noticed it, I liked that Troy and Crusher had better parts in this. I thought they were used.
Yes.
You know, Dr. Crusher was more than a doctor in this. We saw her as a Starfleet officer. Same thing with Deanna. She got to do more than be a counselor. You know, when they were down on the planet,
Yes.
they got to be Starfleet officers. I like that. I thought Worf had some nice moments. They work him into the storyline just, you know, coincidentally. He just shows up on the ship. You know, during this particular time period, he's stationed on Deep Space Nine. So he just shows up, and then, you know, Picard says, "What are you doing here?" And then they talk about it, but the camera shifts focus, so you don't really hear his reasoning for being there, which was kind of a, you know, it was a clever way, in my opinion, of getting him on the ship. I thought Geordi and Riker were good. I liked it at the end when they're on the Enterprise and they're working together. I liked that part of the action storyline. You know, I thought that was pretty cool.
I really liked Riker in this one, and I feel like I'm gonna always say the same thing about Riker.
I agree. I love when Riker commands the ship, whether it be the Enterprise or like in the Picard series, he was commanding a different ship. He's the kind of captain, he's in the same vein as James Kirk, right? But he's definitely his own commander, though.
But there was one time in here where I thought it was Captain Kirk. Riker, like, turned a certain way, and the hair, like, I don't know really what it was.
Yeah, because he had shaved the beard, right?
Right. I don't know what it was, but he looked like Captain Kirk for a second.
Very much that same thing in the first season of the Next Generation TV series. When he didn't have the beard, there were times where he would look, and with his eyes and the shape of his face or something, he would remind me of William Shatner, a young William Shatner. And he did again in this, but I never said anything to you about it. It was very interesting. You're like, holy cow, he looked just like Captain Kirk there. And I thought, yeah, he does. And I half wondered if that's why they had him grow the beard in later seasons. Because I remember seeing an article where it was a quote from him saying, "I don't look like William Shatner," or "I don't look like Captain Kirk," something to that effect. And I wonder if he grew the beard or they had him grow the beard to kind of stop the comparison. But the reality is, he commands a ship old school, like Kirk would, but he's definitely his own commander, does his own things, and I love how Geordi worked with him. I thought they made a great team on the ship, and that was my favorite portion of the story, I think.
Yes, I really liked that too, but there's sometimes, I don't really know why, but there are some times when I kind of wish that Picard and Riker were together on a planet or something. I don't really know why, I just think it might be cool, but I definitely did like what they did here.
I agree. All right, so, well, for me it's sort of a mixed bag, like I said, but for you, what do you think?
I think that you should see it, but you might not like every part of it, so I'm just going to give it in the middle.
Yeah.
In the middle.
Like I said, initially when I saw it, I really liked it because the characters were more true to who they were in the series. Much more so than I thought they were in First Contact. But that being said, First Contact is a better film just in and of itself. As a storyline, that's a better film than this is because the plot is a little meandering here and a little weak. So I liked it initially, but it's more of an in the middle for me too. There's definitely parts I like of it, but there's other parts that, especially the awkward Data humor, not so much. All right, well that's probably going to be the last of the Star Trek reviews for a while because like I said, Nemesis you're going to have to wait a little while on. Maybe we'll look at the new Star Trek with Chris Pine as Captain Kirk. Yeah, that'll be interesting to see how you feel about that. All right.